What's up, snobs? Shane here to give you my thoughts on Marvel's newest movie, Eternals. It's been pretty divisive, and so just want to let you know where I stand on it and what I thought of the film. When I heard the title, I thought that was a reference to the characters. I didn't realize it was talking about the runtime. Now, before I get into my review and let you know my thoughts on it, I think this movie has sparked kind of a conversation about film criticism in general. There's been kind of this recent trend to say, screw the critics, forget what film critics think, they're stupid and pointless. And I think that kind of attitude completely misses the point of film criticism. Oftentimes when we say critic, we take it to mean the more colloquial way of criticism, to mean a negative inference about something, to mean a critique of something, to mean to point out flaws. That's not what good film criticism is. Good film criticism is not thumbs up or thumbs down, fresh or rotten. That's really boring. I'm not interested in telling you this movie's good, this movie's bad, because honestly, what do you care about my opinion if it's good or bad? You're going to see it and you're going to make up your own mind. What good film criticism does is it engages the movie and it takes it to a different level. It elevates it beyond just entertainment and treats it like art. And so in my reviews, and in this review especially, I'm not really interested in telling you good or bad. I'm going to give you my opinion and what I thought worked and what didn't work, but I'm more interested in starting this conversation about the movie and about filmmaking and storytelling and all of that in general, much more than I am about saying good or bad. Because like I said, what do you care if I thought this was good or bad? But let me tell you what I thought worked about it. Let me tell you the themes that stuck out to me. Let me criticize it. Let me look at it on a critical level, not just I'm going to tell you good or bad. With that in mind, I am going to get into spoilers because I think you kind of need to talk about spoilers to be able to talk about what worked and what didn't work in this movie. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you can pause here or skip to the end where I give you my summary of my thoughts. But if you have seen the movie, continue with me while we talk about what I think worked in this movie. I think what stands out the most to me as the success of this film is that it made me think. You know, it's a very ambitious movie that raises all these questions about morality and humanity and relationships and all this kind of stuff. And there were several points in the movie where I had to sit back in my chair and go, that's an interesting thought. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I would react to that. That's really interesting that they put this character in this situation. I want to see what's going to happen. And so whether you like this movie or not, there is that aspect of it where it does make you think. There are moments where it's not disposable. Some of Marvel's lesser movies, like maybe an Iron Man 2, it felt much more disposable. Whereas Eternals, whether you like it or not, there is weight to it. There is substance that is going to make you think. I think also the technical execution of the movie is very well done. Chloe Zhao is obviously an incredibly talented director, and I think it was an odd choice to put her at the helm of this movie, but I think her directing style does translate to this film. I think, that natural lighting, gorgeous landscape, sweeping shot style that she has captured in her other films is present in this movie and really works and is visually different than the other Marvel movies that we've seen, and so I think that worked pretty well. As far as the characters, I think Kingo is the standout for me. I think because he carries so much of the comedic load, maybe he's not going to be everyone's favorite, but I love Kumail Nanjiani, and I think he was great in the movie. I liked his character's kind of nuance. You get the polar opposite sides within the team of, the characters who think what is going on is right and the characters who are working to stop it. And Kumail kind of ends up in the middle. Kingu just kind of leaves in the third act because he goes, I don't agree with you, but I'm not going to fight you over it. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that brought a different aspect to the big showdown at the end of the movie that we've seen so many times in other Marvel movies. And so I didn't love that he was gone for the third act, but I did think it was an interesting character choice, and he was easily my favorite character in the movie. I also thought that everything in the past really worked for me. I kind of wish that this movie had been split into 2 or 3 films and we could have just gotten a movie of the Eternals throughout history. I thought Chloe Zhao's direction and the look of those sequences in Babylon and places like that were just gorgeous, and I thought it was really visually striking. I thought it was interesting on a thematic level, and so I really enjoyed all those sequences in the past, even if I didn't love the structure of when we got to see those scenes. I think on their own, those scenes were really strong. that's kind of my thoughts on the positive. I think it was an ambitious film that has a lot of interesting ideas and interesting things to say. I think it's a technically really well-made movie. But let's talk about what I didn't think worked in this film. I made the joke in the opening, but this is a very long movie. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's the longest Marvel movie other than Endgame. And on its own, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Endgame works. I think, movies like Lord of the Rings that are 3 hours long are some of my favorite and are immensely rewatchable. However, this movie doesn't build up the goodwill that something like Endgame does. The reason you can sit through 3 hours of Endgame is because you watched over 20 Marvel movies building to that point. You have attachment to these characters. And so the film can take liberties with its structure, with its pacing, with what it does with the character development, because you have already bought into these characters. When the Eternals show up and it's trying to introduce 10 characters and it's trying to tell the story over 7,000 years, and there's these connection to, the Celestials and the cosmic side of things and everything that they're doing and all of it, it just gets to a point where you're asked to care about so much stuff before you care about anything that you kind of just end up checking out, or at least I did. I didn't really care about any of the characters. We're asked to invest in this relationship between Cersei and Ikaris, and I thought their introduction was not very well done, where they both, step out of their pod and they just kind of go, "Hi, I'm Ikaris," like they're, third graders on the playground, and that is the introduction to these characters that we're going to have to follow for 2 hours and 40 minutes and invest in and care about. And so for me, there ended up being so much going on that I couldn't really care about any of it, that I didn't really connect to any of it. There's some big exposition dumps when Cersei gets all the information from the Celestial. It just didn't work. It was like, whoa, what is going on, and this and that, and it just felt very, very overstuffed. Like I said, I think this movie could have been 2 or 3 movies. We could have gotten one film of just the stuff in the past and kind of build that tension and things like that. I also think that the pacing and structure didn't do this movie any services. We're seeing the result and the fallout of things, and then later in the movie we're getting the flashback to the event happening, and then we're supposed to care, and it doesn't totally work. The first 45 minutes kind of felt like it could have been compressed down to about 5 or 10, and it would have moved at a much faster pace. Also with that, the villains don't really work. You kind of get that reveal towards the end that Ikaris is actually the bad guy, and that would have been a lot more interesting if we had kind of seen hints at that, or maybe gotten that revelation earlier in the movie, because we're asked to invest in this war between the Eternals and the Deviants, and there's no reason to care about the Deviants. That storyline didn't really pay off. They introduced this concept that they're stealing the Eternals' powers, and they're evolving and all this stuff, and there's even that conversation that Thena has with one of the Deviants, and it just doesn't really go anywhere, and it doesn't really pay off, and you don't end up caring at all about the Deviants. But if we had known that Ikaris was the bad guy earlier, that could have created more tension. We would have lost that shock that comes towards the end, but the tension could have been more sustainable throughout the film. I think the problem that this movie runs into for me is it kind of wants to have its cake and eat it too. This movie is one that was, heavily marketed and sold on its representation, and that's cool and exciting. I've spoken about how I love seeing Mexican representation in film as someone who comes from Mexican heritage, and so seeing Selma Hayek as the leader of this team, it was like, yeah, that's cool. Like finally a Mexican superhero in the MCU, and then we get this twist that it's not. They're all just androids. And so, sure, it was a Mexican actress in this prominent movie, which is great, and it is a good step forward for the industry, but it's not actually a Mexican character. It's not even a human character. It's just a robot. And I felt like that kind of undid the specialness of, these characters are all from diverse backgrounds, and they're all unique people, and they're actually all just robots manufactured by the same source. And so that kind of undercut some of the different and diverse aspects of the movie and the team for me. Overall, it just felt like this movie bit off more than it could chew. It felt like Chloe Zhao was the right person to direct it, but maybe not the right person to write it. I've not loved her other films because it kind of lose me on the story and the characters, and this movie kind of lost me on the story and the characters. The technical aspects were great, the concept was interesting, the visuals were amazing, but I just didn't care about any of it, and that's disappointing. That's kind of how I felt about the majority of the film. Let's talk about those end credit scenes. That first end credit scene kind of leaked before the movie came out and got people talking. Having seen it, it was definitely an attention getter. I think that Pip the Troll was one of the worst things in the movie. I love the idea of introducing that character, and Patton Oswalt is, a great actor. I think he's hilarious, and I'm interested to see what they do with that. But I thought the CGI just looked terrible. It looked like a PlayStation 2 cutscene, and I couldn't believe that made it into the final product of the movie. But the big moment that everyone's going to be talking about from this first scene is Harry Styles stepping out as Star Fox, as Thanos' brother. I am not super familiar with the character from the comics, and so I don't have, a strong opinion. I know the basics about the character, and it seems like Harry Styles could be someone that pulls off that persona. But obviously that's going to get a big reaction from fans of Marvel when you put Harry Styles in such a prominent role and you attach him to Thanos in the way that they do. And so I am very intrigued to see where they go with that storyline and what's going to happen with that. I don't have... I'm going to reserve my judgment on that for now, but it was certainly jaw-dropping, to say the least, to find out that Harry Styles is playing the brother of Thanos. You see Thanos, and Harry Styles is not the person that comes to mind as being a relative, but we'll see where they go with that. I liked the second end credit scene even more than I liked the first one. I thought that Kit Harington's character as Dane, who eventually becomes Black Knight, was kind of underserved in the movie. I thought he was going to have a much larger role, and he kind of just got sidelined, and that last conversation that he has with Cersei before she's whisked away, I was like, oh, that's where they're going to leave this. They're just going to end it on that. And so to have them put that button at the end, I thought was really important. And then we get Blade, which is really cool. When I first heard it, I was like, that's definitely Mahershala Ali. And no one around me in the theater seemed to be reacting. And so I was like, well, was that wrong? And looking it up, to see it confirmed that is Blade. And so the two of them teaming up, I think, is awesome. That's really cool. And just getting the introduction of that character in the MCU is a big deal. Overall, I thought the movie had a lot of interesting ideas. I thought it swung for the fences. It did something different, which is commendable. I think, the Marvel movies have become so predictable and so formulaic. And this movie isn't that. This movie isn't every other Marvel movie you've seen. But you have to be more than just different. You also have to be compelling. You have to be a story that presents me with characters and stakes and things that I can invest in and care about. And unfortunately, Eternals struggled to do that for me. I think that this is a film that I probably won't ever rewatch. I don't feel the need to revisit this one. I got some interesting, perspective and introspection on humanity from it. There's a fun performance from Kumail Nanjiani that I liked, and it does set up some big story pivots in the future for the MCU. But unfortunately, it's just not something that I'm eager to see again. I didn't end up caring about enough of the characters or the story to want and sit for 2 hours and 40 minutes and watch this movie again. It should have probably been 2 or 3 movies, or maybe don't introduce 10 characters right off the bat. Maybe give us 5 that we can care about. Maybe go, the Guardians of the Galaxy route. And even that, you don't really learn very much about the characters in that film just because so much is going on. But it works a lot better than this movie did, in my opinion. For that reason, I am giving Marvel's Eternals 2.5 stars out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We're headed into Oscar season. This is one of my favorite times of the year for film. So check back often where we're going to be tracking, who's in contention for the Oscars and the major awards like that. And I'm going to be giving you my reviews on all the major contenders. So make sure you check back here, and I'll see you then.